Hey Garth, it's good to see you.
Jason, always the highlight of my week, sir.
It's, full disclosure, it's Sunday morning of the week we're releasing this. We both got the same
Yeah.
ball cap on because I think we're excited
Heyo.
about watching some Blue Jays.
Yayo.
But Garth, before we get going, we're talking about a book today
Yeah.
called Be Yourself at Work, and the
Yeah.
Chief Heart Officer is the author. That's her job title. Chief Heart Officer. Truly, her title. What's the weirdest job title you have at KCS? Or that maybe you've seen in any of your schools? Doesn't have that's the thing about Canadian accredited independent schools. There's like these weird job titles everywhere. What's one that where you're just like, oh my goodness, I didn't see that anywhere else?
Jeez. I don't know. You put me on the spot here. I'm not sure. I don't know. I could say like at my previous school, I did have five different titles. And so titles started to mean a little less
Yeah.
to me
What was
as we
your
went
favorite
along.
title of the five?
Of the five, probably the first title, the title I was hired into, Vice Principal of Student Engagement and Experiential Development.
Right? That's
That was
serious.
my first one, and then it shifted over time. But yeah, what about you, Jason?
We have a director of elevated opportunities, which is a curious title, but it's like, it is basically before and after school care and like co-curriculars for the little people and a thing called
Yeah,
Junior Cobras and a thing called Curiosity Lab and all these things. We couldn't figure out what to call it, so we just called it elevated
because you're the
opportunities. But
Rundle Cobras, right?
we are the Cobras. Yeah, we have a Junior
Yeah,
Cobras program where the little people play rugby and
yeah.
football and those things. But yeah, so
I
I
love
think
I love the signal that sends. Elevated opportunities.
right, but it's
I,
tough
I
to
might borrow that.
you go for it, but it's tough to articulate to people who don't know anything about it. And I can appreciate that Claude Silver probably spends a little bit of time articulating her role. What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah, definitely. And this is like the core of the book. She really traces her journey. It's almost like a memoir. Her journey through the company over time and why this job title is so important and so significant, and the signal that it sends to everybody in the organization or who wants to come work in the organization, that this is the language that you have to speak here. We have tough conversations. We enter into these tough conversations with heart and with like leading from the heart, where we're showing up and we're standing out unafraid to be ourselves at work.
And over the next 18 minutes, we're going to hit you with obviously the high points from the book, but we're going to challenge you, listener, to think about psychological
Yeah,
safety. We're going to challenge you to think about not being a thermometer, but instead being a barometer. We're going
mm,
to challenge you to think about the boundaries you might have that create the opportunities for you to be your full self at work. And hopefully one of those things makes you curious enough to continue on through the opening credits and get into this podcast. What do you think, Garth?
well, I'm hooked. I'm interested. All right, listeners,
Okay.
let's get to it. Enjoy.
Okay. Enjoy the show.
Lassoing leadership, sharp and true. Beard's Book Club got wisdom for you. Turn the pages, let the stories flow. Unpacking lessons as we grow.
Welcome back to Lassoing Leadership. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jason Rogers, and as always, I'm here with my co-host, Garth Nichols. Garth, it's good to see you again this morning. How you doing?
Good to see you, sir. Good to see you. I'm really good, thank you. Really, really good. Jay's on a hot streak right now. 4 games in a row.
There you
Took
go.
out of the game Paul Skeens on Saturday, so that's exciting.
Take
Yeah.
it when you can get it. And schools, we're kind of into a hot streak as well. It's almost summer, Garth.
Yes.
It's this will drop 1 week before June.
Yep.
And when June hits, the school year is almost over. How you
Yeah.
guys doing out there? You getting ready?
Yeah. Yeah. Good. It doesn't feel like June because it's been really cold and really rainy of late. But yeah, the schools. I love these moments where you get to like celebrate. You can like. There's lots to do. Our faculty are still working really hard and at all the good things, and the students are working really hard at all their good things, and we're working at good things together. So I love it.
That's cool. No, it's like that time of year where all the heart and hard work have come together and you
Yeah.
end up, being able to enjoy those with your community. And as we talk about heart, we've got a pretty cool author on next week. I'm looking forward to introducing her to our
Hmm.
communities. Why
Yeah.
don't you give, a 36-second summary of who's coming on here, Garth, for everybody's interest?
Yeah, we've got Claude Silver coming
Yes, we
on,
do.
and she's the
Yeah.
Chief Heart Officer at Vayner Industries, and she has this book. which is called Be Yourself at Work, is a bestseller now. You can find her on a whole bunch of different platforms. She's being interviewed left, right, and center. So as you and I have talked about before we hit record, I'm just like so thrilled that we were able to get her on our podcast and talk a little bit about her book and her experiences and what brought her to becoming Chief Heart Officer. And so this book really brings her life experiences to bear, shows how, how she was able to lead with both courage and compassion, how to harness that emotional intelligence, not as a side effect, but as a great leadership source, a source of great leadership, and her rise in the country too.
Do you think
Or
we've come
in the
across?
company.
Do you think we've come across a book with a more obvious title?
Yeah, the title is called Be Yourself at Work. And I was like, of course, my first thought, well, of course you should be yourself at work.
Yeah, it just
But
seems so
what this,
plainly obvious, doesn't it? The
yeah,
thought
but
that it's I guess it's not, is it?
I don't think it is. And that's what this book is about. And I think it's a really great barometer. Check
Mhm.
in on yourself. Like
Mhm.
how able are you to be yourself at work? And here's the other critical question. We'll circle back to this towards the end too. How are you as a leader enabling others to be themselves at work in a really healthy and positive way?
So I think for our listeners, I mean, this is the first kind of moment of pause in the podcast. Is I'd love for everybody to hit pause and think for a minute or two about, are they their full selves at work? And do they believe that the people who work around them are their full selves and they're empowered and enabled to do so? And if the answer is no to either one of those, I think ask ourselves the question why, or let's ask our organizations the question, why aren't people themselves at work? So, I mean, Garth, what do you take away from the title of the book, or even the thesis of the book?
I think what I took away from it is this, like, be yourself at work, and those two great questions, if yes, why? If no, why not? But also, what are the things that tell you you can be yourself at work?
Right.
What are the things that are telling you as an individual, as a leader, that you can be yourself at work? And what are you doing to make sure that others can talk about being themselves at work? I think that's the big takeaway for me.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think, one of the first things Claude talks about in her work is psychological safety. And leaders have this responsibility to, demonstrate that people are safe at work and then build cultures that provide ongoing psychological safety. And I think about, being your whole self at work. I think if you've got the psychological safety to be yourself at work, and I think it starts at the top. I think it starts with authenticity and vulnerability, like we've talked about so much, so often in this podcast. If the leader is themselves at work, I think other people feel liberated to also to pull down that professional mask a little bit and let their whole selves shine in the workplace.
Yeah, and it goes back to, I totally agree. Those are great points, Jason. And it goes back to something which I heard, which, on the surface sounds pretty simple, but so does the title of this book. You can be congenial at work, but you better also be collegial, and Claude Silver talks about this as the architecture of belonging. It's the idea that teams thrive when they can trust each other, not only to perform, right, but to be human. And she, in her own practice and in the book, talks about, you never shy away from hard conversations and accountability. In fact, those are the moments where you can be yourself at work. Those are the moments where it's you're passing along, you are building like embodied learning and trust. And what's interesting is, like, what's the payoff to all of this? Having those hard conversations, because the payoff is that really good leaders who are practicing this approach can distinguish between those real and manufactured crises. And I love this, when recognizing and helping others recognize when they come to you as their leader or as a leader in the organization, and they say, "Oh, I'm in crisis. I got this and this and this going on." You can bring that emotional calm, and the companies and the people in the companies that can distinguish between real and manufactured urgency, they just show up differently. They're able to be more creative, more resilient, and more capable of actually handling a crisis.
Well,
Right. And so I think that
yeah.
that's the payoff to having that emotional ability.
You hit on so many good points there, Garth. I mean, it does that. You're talking about psychological safety. the whole time you're chatting there. I really think so. You're also talking about, we talked to David Yeager earlier in this series, and he talked about, high care, high expectation environments, the fact that they don't have to be exclusive of each other. And I think you've hit on that. And Kim Scott, who we have yet to have on the show, but I think we should, wrote that book, Radical Candor, a number of years ago. And she talked about, the happy, smooth fallacy, where the fact that, great cultures and environments don't have to be happy, smooth environments. They have to be spaces that can withstand, crises, like you said, manufactured or real, but also be able to withstand great feedback and great collegial conversations. And so I think you've really captured it. And I think that is really at the heart of Claude's work here. So I think as we think about Claude's work, and if people want to, get acquainted with the book, I'd send them towards your review of it, Garth, because you did a review of this not that long ago.
I sure did, Jason.
And so let's jump in. What were a couple things you took out while you were reviewing the book for our listeners? I would encourage our listeners to get over to your blog and give that a read, or give the book a read before we get Claude on here next week.
Oh yeah, definitely. The big thing for me, and this is a theme throughout our podcast now, but she takes it a step further in this concept of like emotions. And so she talks about how emotions are data points, right? And I love that idea that emotions are data points, and they tell us what's really happening beneath the surface of our organizations. That ignoring them doesn't make us professional; it just makes us disconnected. That's something that David Yeager talks about. It's something that a lot of people have talked about in terms of like mattering as well. Understanding emotions. So she breaks it down into 3 sort of disciplines, if you will. And the first one is emotional optimism. It's the act of assuming good intent and believing in the possibility of people and progress. It's not like blind positivity or like toxic optimism or anything along those lines. But that hope is grounded in trust. So that's emotional optimism. And the second discipline is emotional bravery. This is what I was talking about earlier, the courage to hold hard conversations and be present in the discomfort. And so I'll quote from the book, if you don't mind, Jason, but she says, real bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's the choice to stay human when it would be easier to hide. So you and I talk about this a lot, but so do many of the authors, just holding space of that in that discomfort, and not trying to brush it aside. And the last one is super interesting, emotional efficiency. And this is what happens when compassion meets clarity, when you lead with empathy, but also define boundaries, expectations, and follow through. And so these 3 pieces, these disciplines, emotional optimism, bravery, and efficiency, are really what helps sort of bridge psychology, leadership, and culture with that extraordinary warmth that you will feel on the podcast when you hear Claude and our conversation. I think it's really great.
Yeah, and I think, like we've said it 100 times, probably the most quoted thing on this podcast is that everybody's doing the best that they can. I think that's like Brene Brown's standard from way back in the day, and Claude hits that in, principle number 1. I want to take a minute though and talk about emotional efficiency, Garth, from the lens of school leadership, or, what, how do you define that in your work in real terms? Garth, head of school leader, what is emotional efficiency for you in your practice?
Yeah. I think that, I don't know, emotional efficiency talks a little bit about social, like that regulation of emotions. In the sense of, like Claude Silver brings in like learning science to all of this stuff, or neuroscience to all of this stuff as well. And she says that the brain has 4 seconds where it releases the emotions, like in your body. 4 seconds. And you can feel it when that happens. Anger, frustration, curiosity, love, hope, optimism, all those things. And she also talks about how it's 90 seconds for these sort of neurotransmitters, hormones to make it through your body. And she says, if you can ride the wave of those 90 seconds rather than drown in it, you are already leading yourself. And so I'm reminded of like stoicism here. It's the ability to sort of pause and sit with emotion rather than just react to it. And I think that forms the center of what she talks about, heart-centered leadership. And so it's the power of this pause It's the power of like putting your emotion, your ego aside, like taking that practice of like understanding how your body is reacting to those emotions so that you're becoming more fluent with that conversation between you and your body, as opposed to suppressing them or just responding, like letting them take over. That's what I think it means around emotional efficiency. Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm glad I asked. That I think is exactly what leaders need, Garth. I think all of us need a plan. It almost comes back to that Mike Tyson quote, doesn't it? It's like everybody's got a plan until you get hit in the face. And I think we all get hit in the face with emotional challenges time and again in our workplace. And if we don't have a plan, those become pretty precarious 90-second intervals where you can't unring a bell or you can't put
Yes.
toothpaste back in the tube, And I think if you don't have a strategy coming into that, you're more likely to ring that bell and regret it than otherwise, And I think
I love
that is a huge part of emotional efficiency. I think the other part to that too, Garth, is we can't dress this up. This work is hard and it's emotional, and it's like we can't sit here, be Pollyanna on this podcast and say, it's going to be okay. Just lead with heart and you're going to be fine. But you said something really interesting a little while ago. And it's just, you have to have boundaries and you got to live with them. And I think there's a space where you have to give yourself permission as a leader to, one, leave things behind. You can't carry everything all the time. Your backpack becomes far too heavy. And how do you do that? I mean, I do it through journaling and good note taking, honestly. And secondly is you got to protect time and space in your life. Like, Garth, I'll be honest, this podcast is an important one for me because I know that an hour a week I get to not do emails and these sorts. It's protected time, right? Or we have a 7 to 7 email rule at our school where 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. email to your heart's delight. But unless it's an emergency, don't hit anybody after 7 p.m. or before 7 a.m. And, that creates the boundaries and the safety where we can turn off and check out and recalibrate and recoup and get ready for the next day. And so I think that's another part where you have to plan those boundaries. You can't just assume that they're going to be there, and work will take every minute of your life and every ounce of your emotions if you let it. So I think that's astute and really important point that you brought forward there, Garth. I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate what you just said, Jason, because that was pretty powerful too. And I think what you were getting at as well is this idea of like, this is, as you said, leadership is hard. And so let's make this a practice. And so Claude Silver's book is a practice. But
It
Jason, I'm going to go on a bit of a digression here to acknowledge one of our listeners. Is that cool?
Yeah. I can't wait.
Because Jen from just around the Toronto area, just north of the Toronto area, she wrote us, and she took her dog for a big long walk, and she had this realization, and it was really special to us. So thanks, Jen, for writing to us. Really appreciate it. She writes, I realized this morning, I was walking and listening to the two of you talk about Jennifer's book, Mattering, is that you have both become a regular part of my personal and professional crew that's in my corner, that pushes me to think more deeply, who ask good questions and challenge me to really stop and think what I'm doing for my school and my students and why. I also love that there's always a connection to my own personal life, my family life, and just ways to be a better human as well. I love following your pod as it's grown since the beginning. As someone who started following when you first launched Lassoing Leadership, I love seeing the way your episodes have grown and changed, and the ways you both embraced it and run with it over the years. She goes on and on and on. But Jason, it was so nice. And so for me, it's like really special to know that we are part of someone else's practice in what we're doing here. And really, really appreciate that. And also in the book, Claude doesn't stop at just theory or her own experiences. Like, she provides scripts and templates of how to do this stuff, of how to have this practice of engaging in tough conversations, to reestablish trust when it's been broken, to rebuild connections when things go sideways. She even includes exercises to explore what trust sounds like and what safety feels like. So, I mean, Jason, you gotta get this book. It's amazing.
Yeah, Claude's really on it here, and she does talk about micro moments. We've talked about that in the past as well. And I think if you're looking to take one or two things away from a book or a podcast, Claude has that in spades. And I think, as you're reading that beautiful email that we received, I think there's an idea of like gratitude, reciprocity, which I think, can be paid forward, can be paid up, can be paid down, to your leadership, people who are leading you, or to people you're aspiring to lead. I think these micro moments can be so often lost, particularly as we get into the busyness of June. And I think the high impact moments can be in those unexpected, unseen moments of gratitude where you do start to and continue to establish a positive organizational culture. And so I think now is the time. That's, I think, partially why we've left this book to now to release this podcast, is everybody needs to know that, you got to bring your whole heart to work and be yourself at work in this home stretch to continue to build strong cultures.
Yeah, and it couldn't come at a better time. As you identified, schools are getting hot right now. Schools are getting busy times. And so, your emotional bandwidth, your cognitive bandwidth is being pressured here. So take a look at this book, listen to the podcast next week, because this will give you some strategies, I think, and just reminders that when you ask that next question, when you hold those, 4 to 90 seconds, that is a practice that will go a long way.
Garth, before we sign off, and you just said something that cued me again, is you said schools are getting hot. And that's one of the metaphors that Claude uses kind of throughout her work, is we aren't the thermometer. We're not in there to tell the temperature. We are the thermostat. We're there to set the temperature. And that comes from a leadership perspective, is what is the temperature of the culture you're looking to set? And then you need to lead with heart to get there. And I mean, I don't know. Like, I think I love how Claude's pivoted this idea of human resource department to, kind of a heart department. I think is absolutely genius as well. I'm just absolutely smitten with the work that she's been doing over the last decades. And she's taken all of that wisdom, put it into this book, and couldn't be happier to have her on the pod next week.
Yeah. She starts the book, when she's young, and talks about her journey all the way through to this company and where she's at now. And one of the things that she starts the book with is this notion of a song in your head. And she's on this hike as part of sort of an outdoor adventure, sort of establishment of herself. And she's falling behind. She's having a really tough time. And the counselor who's running the session looks at her and says, "You got a song in your head as you're hiking?" She says, "Yeah." "What is it?" And she names the song. And he laughs and says, "You better get a different song in your head." Right? So that really was a moment for her where she could control what song was in her head. And so, listeners, as we sign off here, think about what song you're going to put in your head as you enter into, hopefully in Toronto anyway, warmer and brighter weather, but also into the weather and being that thermostat for your people.
And Claude is going to help us and help you continue to lead in a kinder, more compassionate way. And it's truly the core of what we're trying to do here with the Lassoing way, Lassoing Leadership. So until next time, everyone, keep reading and leading the Lasso way. Thanks for being here, Garth. That was
a way to bring it home, Jason. Thanks. Great to see you.
Lassoing leadership, sharp and true. Beard's Book Club.
All right, so we just finished the podcast, folks, and if you stuck around after our closing music, which is awesome, because it's a great song, we ended with this idea of like, what song is in your head? So, Jason, what's a song that's in your head, or that you want to put in your head as you enter into these last sort of couple of months of Rundle?
I had a feeling you're going to ask me this question. I sit here surrounded by my record collection. I'm just trying to think of what I might answer. And I think about this run that we do every year. It's called the Winter Start in Banff. And we run up Tunnel Mountain. So it's a 8 kilometer, 4 kilometer up, 4 kilometer down race. It's a run. You do it at night. And we always create a playlist, my wife and I do, for this run. And the one that sticks with me is Hosier, Take Me to Church. It's got it's got a good rhythm,
Anthemic.
Good beat. It's an anthem. It's, and I really do think, if I'm thinking about June, we're not a religious school. We're not affiliated with any church, but I mean, it's, this season of celebration. So let's come back. Let's come to a place of revelation and excitement and appreciation. And, I think I can lean into Take Me to Church by Hosier. What about you?
Wow.
What's your, is that appropriate? I think that's good. What's your anthem?
Sure. Right now, like it's kind of hits on the same vibe, but right now, ever since Project Hail Mary, I've been really digging Sign of the Times by Harry Styles.
Ooh, nice one. I'll have to give that another listen.
Yeah. And I think, there's a lot of meanings behind that song, but taken on the surface, which is what I do
Yeah.
with this one, the idea is like, as a leader, pick up what are the signs of the times, right? What are you seeing? What are you picking up as the sign of the times in your school culturally, as you head into celebrations? What is the faculty culture? What's the parent culture? What's the student culture? What's happening here? What are the signs of the times in your school?
All right, listeners, what's your anthem? What's going to get you through June?
Send us
right?
some
Yeah,
and listen, let's make a playlist, listeners. Send us some songs. Just all you got to do is just send the song title. You don't have to write anything else. Just like send us the song title and artist, and we'll put a playlist together if we can.
We'll get it in
and
the
there
show
will
notes.
be Phil Collins on it. There will be Phil Collins.
All right. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. Thanks for that, Garth.
Bye.
Grab your coffee, grab your seat. It's time to learn, it's time to meet. Garth and Jason setting the tone. Leadership lessons to take back home. Lassoing leadership, sharp and true. Beard's Book Club got wisdom for you. Turn the pages, let the stories flow. Unpacking lessons as we grow. Keep leading the lasso way. Together we'll grow stronger every day. So plug in your headphones and let's start the show. With lessons from Ted, we'll learn and grow. Lassoing leadership, sharp and true. Beard's Book Club got wisdom for you. Turn the pages, let the stories flow. Unpacking lessons as we grow. Keep leading the lasso way. Together we'll grow stronger every day. So plug in your headphones and let's start the show. With lessons from Ted, we'll learn and grow. Lasso